Okay. Welcome me.
Okay.
Welcome me.
Oh yeah.
No. That's how you start it. You say,
yeah.
I want to welcome
Yeah.
my videographer and okay. Oh well.
Whatever.
We're running.
Oh, we're running now?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Well,
Well.
okay. I'll actually have two monitors here
Okay.
running, so you can see other views of it. And okay, tell me how you were contacted to go on this trip.
I'll give a preamble.
Okay.
Well, we're back here, and we had a wonderful time about 1 week ago down at the 121st Air Guard Refueling Unit, or wing rather, down at Rickenbacker Air Force Base. And this distinguished gentleman sitting next to me is Ray Pulliam. Ray is a producer, director, and overall guy that runs this camera, that runs the show really. And he suggested a debriefing, just like in the military, because Ray also is ex-military. He's ex-Army information. And so he never tells me anything because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And,
well, we're here
oh, I forgot to silence. Forgot to silence it. Okay, good.
okay,
Yeah, there's the
start over
right here.
again.
Well, no, right here. Right here is the Colonel Shaker, and we interviewed him in November 20th
Okay.
of 2014,
Okay.
and
In what?
at the MOAA
Oh
meeting.
yeah.
So, anyway, and that's how it got started, that we were to go on that trip.
Well, at this debriefing, which Ray, he could do everything on this, and he suggested we have a debriefing, and of what happened, of where we're on a wonderful trip at the 121st Air Guard Unit wing and the Air Guard Unit down to Rickenbacker Air Force Base. These gentlemen go up and they refuel airplanes all over the world, and they're just amazing to watch this. And Ray actually brought the camera, and we have it on YouTube and on the website. He recorded everything, and this came about because we had Colonel Shaker Fidel, friend of mine, on the Military Officers Organization, Western Reserve Chapter, and we interviewed him there, and I got to know him pretty well, so he invited Ray and I to go on this trip, which was an actual refueling trip. And I guess they call it the boss lift, wouldn't you say,
Yes,
Ray?
yes.
To show people in business and what the air refueling people do and what the guard people do. And to get the business community on the side of the guard, because these people get where they are, and the guard and the reserve, I might add. And they want the employer support of the guard and the reserve, because these fellows, these crew members, ground crew, air crew and all, leave their homes and businesses when they have an extended tour or a shorter tour. And so they want their employers to realize what these gentlemen are doing to safeguard this country and safeguard our freedom.
Let me just check
And-
that. Yeah, go ahead.
And Shaker invited us on, or Colonel Shaker invited us on this, and we went down there a week ago today, Thursday. Got down there early in the morning. We had a briefing by General Lance Meyer, Major General I might add. He's been a fighter pilot, he retired Air Force, was a fighter pilot just about his entire career, flew just about every fighter jet going. Then he went into the multi-engine aircraft, the KC-135 refueling airplane. And he flew that, then he became commander of Rickenbacker Air Force Base, which a lot of you folks might remember as Lockburn Air Force Base. Changed to Rickenbacker, named after Eddie Rickenbacker, World War II's leading ace, or World War I, I should say, leading ace, fighter ace, in the skies over Germany and and over France. So Ray took all this. He did yeoman work down there, and all I do is sit there and watch him, maybe talk a little bit, but Ray does everything. Photographs it, waves at me, pictures, sets up the people we're going to interview, and so here I'll turn it over to Ray, and he'll tell you a little bit about. He suggested a debriefing. We're going to talk about our trip and what went on in the trip. So Ray, give us a rundown on it.
Okay, we met in Montrose at a location so that the other member that was on the trip and the Colonel Shaker could meet with us, and then we would go on from there on down to Columbus. Now, Colonel Shaker, he was commander of that unit at one time, right?
No, he was in the actual reserve,
You know.
and he was working with the Air Force Academy, along with another colonel I know, Walt Stashke. In fact, I was at dinner with him last night, and they were the representatives recruiting and actually looking over and investigating and all that for recruits for the Air Force Academy. And then I met him when he spoke. We interviewed him at the Military Officers Organization dinner, and he invited us to go along. We couldn't do it the previous year, but we did it this year, and believe me, it was a memorable trip. Well, you can tell us about it there, Ray, can't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we met together and we went down 71 to Columbus area and to the Rickenbacker Air Force Base. As we pulled in, they had cement barriers up, so you had to zigzag through to get to the guard station. And you know, you think of a guard duty, you know, one with the sidearm. Well, not only was there a sidearm, but there was a full sniper rifle and scope and full armament. So I think they even actually appeared on both sides. We talked to the one, but yet there was another one on the other side who is paying very careful attention to all of the passengers. And because the driver was a colonel, he had showed him his identification and showed where that we were invited guests. At the end of checking the credentials, the soldier came to attention and saluted the colonel, and then we verified exactly where the passenger terminal was located, and then we proceeded on. When we got into the station, you know, it was back to military time. A lady there greeted us, and she asked us to sign in and also to give a release for the information, and also said, okay, the latrine is located such and such. So there, that brought us back to our military time. And then we went into a conference room, and then on the video you will see those videos. But at the beginning we started off with okay, that's the wrong one. Yeah, it was on this one where Ernie, he had an interview with the commander, with the Major General, and got an introduction to our trip. Now, once we were done with that, we also had another interview with the commander of the unit. So that's one thing that would not have been seen by the passengers. along with the interview that was done by with the Major General. Once we were done with all those, we went through a regular TSA searching of of items that we had on our person. We took off our belts and our pins and all that, and so anyway, it was a thorough search, and if it detected anything, then we had the one search. And so, one thing different though at this TSA search was that if you did have a pocket knife, you could turn it in, but at the end of the program, you could get that back. Anyway, we got on a bus and we proceeded to go out to the aircraft. Now, the airport itself has complete security, so the driver went to a gate, and he had to put in a code to open up that gate, and very sturdy gate too. And we proceeded on into the to the plane, and we were fortunate where that we had a regular airline ramp to get up into the plane. It was a cargo hold opening on the top, and inside the plane there were only 4 little windows. They were only a 6x6. So I had previously seen some photos that the City of Green mayor had gone on a trip prior, and I could see the type of photo I would want. So I picked a spot and set up my camera so I could properly record the video that I wanted. And of course, in the hold itself, they had 4 big boxes, and that was set up for cargo, and they have them strapped down. And we asked about them, and the boom operator actually opened up one of them so we could see that there was really nothing in there, but they take up the space just to have it for other operations. Now, I didn't take any photos inside, but it's very sparse. The walls are kind of have insulation on them, because anyone who travels knows that for every 1,000 feet you go up, the temperature drops 3.5 degrees. And so they just had along the very top of the roof is where the heater is. So they said, now your feet might get cold. So it's not like on a regular aircraft where the air is circulating. And you would sit actually against the wall, but it was just like a cot and then a webbing for your back. And you had the regular seat belt, but one difference is that you actually have to carry a pouch that has an oxygen container, because if they would lose, if they would go into decompression, then you would actually have to have a mask and your own oxygen. So they gave instructions, and you paid attention to that, and also the boom operator asked the ladies, he said, "You're choosing to set at this location?" And she said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, you're at the emergency exit, so let me show you how to take care of that." And unlike in a regular commercial aircraft, they just tell you this is the location of the emergency exit. Well, he went and moved the lever over to unlock that door, and he actually pulled the door from the aircraft into the plane so she could actually see how it would be removed. He put it back into place and locked it, and then he showed her right below that was the slide for exiting. And he said, all you do is pick it up and push it outside the plane, and then it would automatically inflate. So, I mean, the briefing that we had in the plane was quite a bit more than what you would get in a regular flight. So, also we saw the location of where the boom operator would go, and on each side there's an entrance to it where the passenger observers could actually lay down and actually see the other jets getting refueled. On this trip there were 2 sets of 4 F-16 fighter jets that were going to be refueled. They were traveling from Toledo, and we were in a location halfway between Columbus and Cincinnati, over farm area. But anyway, that's where we were doing the refueling. We were possibly at about 25,000 feet, and were we doing 300 to 400 miles an hour, I think.
Yeah, 300 knots, which would be approximately 350 miles an hour.
Okay. Well, it's good, good estimate between 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Okay. When we were landing, the boom operator said that the runway we were landing on was 12,000 feet long, and that was alternate landing strip for the shuttle. So if they couldn't make it to Florida or to California, they could actually go to this one to land the space shuttle. Of course, they never had to do it that way. One item we had is they had a box lunch provided by Subway, and that was a 6-inch sub. There was chips and cookie, and then they also provided water for us. Because I was so busy on doing the videos, I only took a couple bites of the sandwich, and I got back to being ready to record the video. And if you watch the video, you'll see first I go and catch one single plane pulling up alongside, and then later on there were 3 while one was getting refueled. But there was a total of 2 sets of 4 F-16 fighter jets that, as I say, came from Toledo, and they were on a refueling. Requirement of jet fighter pilots is that they have to do 2 refueling tests every 6 months. So they also have to do 1 night refueling. But anyway, in the video itself, the Major General specified how they find the exact location of the point where they are to refuel. There's different lights set up. It's just like an ILS where they can see the different lights, so they know what type of altitude they have to get on, and how they line up with the boom. And then of course the boom operator is the one who finally sets the boom on the correct elevation, and then he feeds the fuel pipe right to the plane nozzle itself. And let's see if and also well, when we were done, we'll get back to Ernie in a moment. When we were done, we did go by a whole set of F-22 Raptors. They were being relocated to there temporarily because of the hurricane that was going through along the East Coast, and it was quite a privilege to see those F-22 Raptors. They are a supersonic aircraft, and they're capable of speeds of Mach 2.35. That is actually 1,550 miles per hour for us to consider. They have vector nozzles, twin engine, and so they are very maneuverable. And in fact, Ernie said he couldn't even see the wings. They were that thin. They were like razor edge on the wings, because it's a little bit different of how they actually fly. So we weren't allowed to take any photos of them for security reasons. Anyway, I'll turn it back over to Ernie for some more of his comments.
Well, Ray, thank you. You said debriefing. Boy, you sure gave us one there right from the go.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was interesting because both Ray and I are veterans. Ray, Army Intelligence during the Cold War. I was World War II and you in the Army Air Corps, the B-29 out in the South Pacific, and recalled after college as a second lieutenant into the Army Air Forces. So both of us were just gobbled up everything we saw and everything we heard. It was just, and then on the papers that we signed, we actually signed in as crew members. You remember that, Ray?
Oh,
so
yeah.
We could probably say we were recalled at our ages for one day into the Air Force. And I mentioned that to a couple of wise guys I know, and I says, Ray and I have been recalled to the Air Force. And this one gentleman looks at me and he says, you mean they're that hard up? They recalled a couple old coots like you guys. The other guy does a sign of the cross that says, God help us all.
Yeah.
So that was the lighter part of it. And it was just so interesting. And of course, I'm standing back and watching a lot. And I'm always interested in the people. And with the dedication and these like General Lance Meyer, a fighter pilot all of his life, except when and when you talk to those gentlemen, you say, this is just amazing what these guys, and also Colonel Auer. I asked him, what got you into the Air Force in the beginning? He says, I had a calling. And I've only heard pastors, ministers, and priests say I had a calling. And here's an Air Force colonel. And he's, of course, Air National Guard now, but they're part of the Air Force and reserves also. And I said, a calling? He said, yes. And he named off relatives that served in the military. The Marines, Army, I think, and his one son is a helicopter pilot. And he sounded sincere. He just wasn't what you call blowing smoke, for people that were taking pictures, and you might call it press. And he was very sincere. He recounted his career in the military. And I just shake my head at the dedication. And then again, watching the refueling. I hear these young guys are flying these Mach 2.35, 1,500 mile an hour jets, and they're coming up to an airplane just like they're coming up to a gas station. They are below the airplane, they gradually move up. And they get into gassing position from below. Then when they're finished, they just break off and away they go. And then I was up toward the cockpit and observing those guys. And you could not see any more professional people up there. These gentlemen, these officers knew exactly what to do. The airplane commander, he was always looking back and looking for the airplanes that they're going to refuel. and the co-pilot never looked up, and he was always, his hands were always working on some kind of a keyboard. And it turned out he was managing the fuel flow into these airplanes. And just when you look at the coordination, the maintenance on the airplanes, the coordination that these fellows show, the ground people, the enlisted boom masters, and how professional and how exact they are and how proud they are of what they're doing. And I heard it once said back many times that one of the last places of dedication, integrity, perseverance in our life, government life, is with the military. And I've always believed that. And so, Ray, let's take it back to you then. And do you have any more comments on it?
Well, I wanted to show you some of the other videos that we have. And for instance, here's one of a professor at Akron U, and he came to the Green Library and he talked about the Akron's role during World War II. And a nice feature of these videos is that they do have closed captioning on them. So you don't actually have to have the volume up on it to see what is happening. You know, you can actually read what is being said. Here it's fairly small, the amount of written, but you do get an idea. One thing, back in 1910, the population of Akron was 69,000. In 1920, it was 200,000. That's because of all the rubber companies that started production. West Virginia, they said the new capital of the state is Akron, Ohio, because instead of going west, young man, you go to Akron, Ohio. There was a community out in California. They saw that Akron, Ohio was the fourth largest growing city in the U.S., and they said we should take note of that. That little community was Los Angeles. So there's all kinds of information on that video also. So when you go to YouTube, you'll see the icon for Ernie's TV. Click on it and then subscribe to it so you can see these different videos. But one of the other videos that we had of very good interest was Miracle on the Hudson.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a comment here and I'll give it back to you, but there was a saying when I was a youngster that went on for quite a while, the 3 R's that are taught in West Virginia: reading, writing, and the road to Akron. And there's still people here, they're descendants, and of course they're second or third generation now, but they came up here and they built the rubber industry. And around the rest of the United States, it's people like that that really worked and built industry. And then I'm going back to the military again. You just can't say enough about this. Gentlemen, businessmen, professional men, and they leave their jobs, their businesses, and their families for deployments, and for one reason, to stay sharp. And they also, many of the organizations in Iraq, Afghanistan, were deployed Air Guard and Air Reserve units. So these guys have to stay sharp, and they certainly are.
Yeah. The unit I was in, we didn't do a lot of the military things because of the security involved, and we just had a policy: do not talk about anything that you do. If they gave us orders at the beginning. It doesn't matter who asks you what you do. It could be the commander or whatever. You can just tell them it's none of your business. So we never talked to anyone, our roommates or anyone, about what we did at the station we were at. I think Ernie wants to talk too.
I've got another comment on this guy's career in Army intelligence, and it carried over into civilian life. When I first met Ray and we started doing this, I'd say, "Hi, Ray," and he'd say, "What do you mean by that?" He'd analyze me for saying, "How are you?" or whatever. But he really stayed true to the Army information credo. And I'd say something to him, I ask him a question, he says, "That's none of your business." "Oh, I didn't mean that," he said.
Yeah, we